There was a beggar sitting by the roadside begging for over 30 years. One day, a stranger passed by, and the beggar mechanically raised his old baseball cap and murmured, "Give me something, please." The stranger said, "I don't have anything to give you. What are you sitting on?" The beggar replied, "It's nothing, just a very old box. It has been here as long as I can remember." The stranger asked, "Why don't you open the box and see what's inside? What could be interesting in such an old box?" As the beggar spoke, he opened the box, and to his astonishment, he discovered that it was filled with gold. Hello. Today we are discussing the ideas in the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Do you ever have a feeling of longing for the past when you were carefree as a child? The adult world is filled with so many worries. People often feel anxious about the future or unable to let go of the pain and regret from the past. And when they think about the present, they feel dissatisfied, living in constant torment. Must we allow these endless troubles to control us? Is there no way to resolve them? The Power of Now tells us that, just like in the story we heard earlier, we already possess a treasure that brings us happiness. We just haven't discovered and tapped into its power yet. That's the power of the present moment. We can find peace, stability, and happiness, freeing ourselves from inner anguish and reclaiming the lasting sense of tranquility and contentment that has vanished. How did Eckhart Tolle discover the power of the present moment? Many of us have probably heard of this book. It's a classic in the genre of spiritual literature and has long held the top spot on the New York Times bestseller list. To find the power of the present moment, Eckhart Tolle, who was a researcher and mentor at Cambridge University, experienced a prolonged period of anxiety at the age of 29. One night, he woke up suddenly, unable to bear his restlessness and anxiety any longer. At that moment, he had a profound and philosophical question in mind. If I cannot stand myself, it means there are two selves inside me fighting for dominance. This question left his mind in a blank state. Yet, within that void, he felt an immense sense of peace and fulfillment. However, this state of peace and contentment only lasted for 5 months before disappearing. Eckhart Tolle wanted to regain that feeling, so he spent many years exploring and experimenting on how to maintain that state for an extended period. Eventually, he discovered the secret of the power of the present moment. He found that living in the present moment allowed him to sustain a lasting sense of contentment, peace, and fulfillment. Does Eckhart Tolle's experience sound familiar? It is similar to the concept of enlightenment in Buddhism. There is a classic Buddhist story that goes like this. There was a wise old monk who often received people seeking advice. One day someone asked the monk, "Master, what changes have you experienced before and after enlightenment?" The old monk replied, "The changes are significant. Before enlightenment, I chopped wood, carried water, and cooked. After enlightenment, I still chop wood, carry water, and cook." The person was puzzled and said, "Master, it sounds the same." The old monk replied, "No, it's different. Before enlightenment, when I chopped wood, I thought about carrying water. When I carried water, I thought about cooking. When I cooked, I thought about chopping wood. After enlightenment, when I chop wood, I only think about chopping wood. When I carry water, I only think about carrying water. When I cook, I only think about cooking." Although we cannot detach ourselves from the mundane aspects of life like the old monk and devote ourselves solely to spiritual practice, life itself is a form of spiritual practice. We, too, can achieve enlightenment, the state of living in the present moment. Living in the present moment may sound simple, but it is not easy to truly accomplish. Next, let's explore how to achieve enlightenment step by step, how to perceive the power of the present moment, and how to truly live in the present. The greatest obstacle to enlightenment is that the materialistic lifestyle of modern people has rapidly advanced, yet happiness levels have declined. Why is this happening? In his book, The Power of Now, author Eckhart Tolle states that the majority of people today, like the beggar at the beginning of the story, are stepping on a box filled with countless treasures of gold, but constantly seeking fulfillment, security, or remnants of satisfaction from the outside world. However, most people believe that the things they haven't obtained yet are the most precious. without realizing that they already possess something more valuable than those things, the inner self. In the book, this inner self is referred to as the essence. So what is this essence? It refers to the deepest self and true nature of a human being, the self that exists beyond one's name, occupation, or personal history. For example, someone may introduce themselves as John, but if they discard that name, they might introduce themselves as an employee of a Fortune 500 company. If they let go of their work identity, they might say they are someone's son or daughter. What remains after shedding these identities is the essence, the true self we mentioned earlier. It is a role or form that remains constant, regardless of the transformations of one's identity. According to Eckhart Tolle, most of the suffering people experience is due to being disconnected from their inner essence. So why do we gradually forget about this essence? It's because our minds are being controlled. When our thoughts are still, our attention is fully focused on the present moment, and we can sense the essence. Maintaining this awareness of the essence is enlightenment. During this state, we experience joy and tranquility from the depths of our being, and our entire being is filled with spiritual power, peace, and happiness. The biggest obstacle to enlightenment is thought. Buddha defined enlightenment as the end of suffering. The root cause of human suffering lies in our minds. Thinking itself is not the problem. The issue arises when we cannot control our thoughts. Our minds are constantly focused on the past and worried about the future, making us slaves to our thoughts. So, how does thought create trouble for us? It's through thought identification. To understand thought identification, we must first understand thoughts themselves. Here, thoughts refer not only to deep thinking, but also encompass emotions and all unconscious psychological processes. For example, when someone graduates from college but cannot find a good job and remains stuck in a city, watching it grow more prosperous and feeling increasingly anxious, thoughts slowly generate feelings of anxiety. This person becomes entangled in their anxious thoughts and may start blaming themselves, their parents, or others. They may even engage in acts of aggression, such as physical altercations at a class reunion, interpreting innocent comments from others as deliberate insults. Now we understand the terrifying consequences of thought identification. So, what triggers thought identification? Is it because we think too little in our daily lives, causing our thoughts to become our reality? On the contrary, it is because people are constantly thinking that thought identification occurs. If the brain is engaged in constant thinking 24 hours a day, without any moments of thoughtless awareness, it becomes incredibly alarming. It prevents us from attaining that inner state of tranquility. Additionally, it creates a false sense of self that constantly projects shadows of fear and suffering. Eckhart Tolle states that our biggest mistake is identifying with our brains and believing that the brain is who we are. In reality, we are far greater than our brains. Our essence, our true nature, is not the same as the random thoughts in our minds. The brain is merely a tool for processing tasks, and many of its thought processes become obstacles. Harmful negative thoughts are not only useless, but also deplete our life energy. Therefore, the crucial first step toward enlightenment is breaking free from thought identification. Eckhart Tolle states that the end of thinking is enlightenment. Because the false self created by thought identification is so unreal, we constantly seek external validation, pursue materialistic satisfaction, and search for a sense of security. How does thought identification cause us suffering? It traps us in time. Once we identify with our thoughts, we involuntarily live entirely in memories of the past or expectations of the future. In this situation, one's attention is completely occupied by the past and future, while neglecting the preciousness of the present moment. When it comes to the essence of living in the present moment, we need to understand the theory of being present. To free ourselves from thought identification, we need to transition from unconsciousness to consciousness. Being conscious means being aware of our thoughts. Eckhart Tolle refers to this conscious awareness of the present moment as presence. To maintain presence, we need to observe our thoughts, ideas, emotions, and reactions in various situations. According to Eckhart Tolle, whenever we have the ability to observe our thoughts, we won't fall into their traps. Due to thought identification, people often get trapped in thoughts about the past or the future. When thinking about the past, we might indulge in regret and complaints, thinking about how things could have been better or different. When thinking about the future, we may feel anxious about how to handle potential situations. However, we forget that the past and future are not significant. The present moment is the most precious thing because it is the only thing that truly exists. Our entire life unfolds within the eternal space of the present moment. We cannot change anything in the past, as it has already passed. Likewise, nothing will happen in the future, as everything only happens in the present. Even if the future is guaranteed to come, it will manifest in the present moment. To live in the present, we must end the illusion of time. The past is gone and won't return, while the future hasn't arrived, and we cannot control it. What we have is the present moment. By making the most of the present moment, a good future will come. Decisions for the future should be made in the present, rather than worrying in the present about the future. Therefore, our focus should be entirely on the present moment. To live in the present means to maintain presence. We should frequently check if our attention has wandered to the past or future, and avoid judging or analyzing what we observe. How can we know if we are maintaining presence? The most prominent characteristic of presence is a highly concentrated attention on the present moment. This is somewhat similar to the practice of meditation in Buddhism. Some Zen masters, to test their disciples' level of presence, would quietly approach them from behind and strike them with a stick. Surprisingly, if the disciple is in a state of presence, they would sense the master's presence and either prevent the strike or move out of the way. But if the disciple gets hit, it indicates that they were immersed in thought. It means their body was controlled by thought, and their true essence was dormant. Presence replaces the waiting that denies the boredom and unease of the present, as well as the endless regret or torment about the past. Presence requires our full concentration and focus on the present moment. In that state, daydreaming, thinking, reminiscing, and waiting have no space to exist. There is no tension or fear, only presence. Our entire existence, every cell within us, becomes centered in the present. After understanding the benefits and characteristics of presence, some people may develop new concerns. Living in the present, despite sounding easy, is indeed challenging. As mentioned earlier, our brain involuntarily engages in thinking, making it easy for our bodies to be controlled by thoughts. For this predicament, there is a simple and effective method: meditation. Mindful meditation helps us live in the present. It is a straightforward yet powerful method that interrupts the destructive influence of negative thoughts on our attention. When you have a few minutes of free time, especially before bed and in the morning when you wake up, you can practice it at any time. First, close your eyes and lie down. Focus your attention on different parts of your body, such as your hands, feet, arms, thighs, abdomen, chest, head, and so on. Try to feel the energy flowing and the sensations in each part as intensely as possible. Stay in each area for about 15 seconds. Then, from head to toe and from toe to head, let your attention move through your body like waves. Repeat this practice several times. Additionally, you can incorporate positive meditation exercises into your daily life. For example, pay attention to the sensation in the soles of your feet while walking, or feel the sensation of water washing your hands when washing your face. The purpose of positive meditation is to awaken our senses, focus on bodily sensations, and connect with our true essence rather than being controlled by wandering thoughts. Many people who are new to meditation encounter a common issue. They find it challenging to focus on the internal aspects of their bodies. If you face this challenge, you can start by focusing your attention on your breath. Conscious breathing itself is a powerful meditation practice that gradually helps us maintain a state of presence. Surrendering means unconditionally accepting the present moment. The term surrender may sound fatalistic, as if we are completely resigned to fate, giving a sense of negativity. However, the surrender in the spiritual practice is not like that. Surrendering does not mean passively enduring any situation that arises in life without making any effort. It does not imply giving up on making plans or taking positive action. Surrendering is a simple yet profound wisdom that is in sync with the flow of life, without going against it. The only place where we can experience the flow of life is in the present moment. Therefore, surrendering means accepting the present moment unconditionally and letting go of resistance within ourselves. It's important to note that when there is a gap between our expectations and reality, resistance within ourselves becomes more pronounced. For example, when a person faces career setbacks or difficulties in love, surrendering means accepting what has already happened and realizing that they need to rise from the low point. They then focus their attention on the present moment. Surrendering is about accepting the reality of the present moment and taking action, making every effort to overcome adversity. This kind of action is positive and more powerful than negative behaviors like anger, despair, or anxiety. It involves not attaching any psychological labels to the present moment and continuously surrendering to the present until we achieve the desired outcome. In reality, much of our suffering comes from resistance. We resist not being fair-skinned, not being conventionally beautiful, not being outstanding, not having a good background, etc. However, most of the dissatisfaction in life arises from this resistance. If we cannot accept the facts that have already happened and constantly live in negative emotions, only through surrendering can we break free from the unconscious resistance in our lives. In a state of surrender, we can clearly see the reality of the situation and what we need to do. Then, we can take action, focusing our attention on one thing at a time. There are two opportunities for surrender that Eckhart Tolle provides in his book. The first opportunity is surrendering to the reality of the present moment. A person needs to acknowledge that reality cannot be changed because it has already happened. Then, depending on the situation, they must do what they need to do. If they can accept reality calmly, there will be no negative mindset, pain, or unhappiness. Such a person will live in a state of non-resistance, filled with gratitude and ease without struggle. If a person cannot achieve this, they miss the first opportunity. Now there is a second opportunity for surrender. If a person cannot accept external circumstances, then please accept the internal condition. In other words, don't resist or avoid pain, but face it, allow its presence, observe it without attaching psychological labels to it, and even embrace it. Then observe how the fluctuation transforms one's pain into tranquility. Eckhart Tolle says in the book that the future a person experiences is primarily determined by the quality of their present moment. Surrender is the key to triggering positive change. Surrender changes us, and when we are changed, our entire world changes. The world is only what we perceive, and each person's perception of the world is different. In summary, let's review the content of this book. Our suffering originates from our minds. We suffer because we have drifted away from our true essence, our being. The key to thought identification lies in the fact that our minds are constantly thinking, and we unconsciously identify with them. Once we identify with our thoughts, we involuntarily live entirely in memories of the past and expectations of the future. This creates regret, worry, frustration, anxiety, stress, and other negative emotions. Furthermore, we discuss the way to overcome anxiety and escape suffering, which is to live in the present moment. Living in the present moment, referred to as presence in the book, means consciously observing the present moment. The present moment is important. It is the only thing that truly exists and the only thing we can change. Everything happens in the present moment. Living in the present moment can break the identification with thoughts. It allows us to fully concentrate our attention on the present moment, to feel it and to accept it. If you find it difficult to do, you can start with meditation. It is a simple and effective method that helps us maintain presence. Finally, we discussed surrender. Surrender is unconditionally accepting the present moment. It makes us more proactive. Surrender is a simple yet profound wisdom that is in harmony with the flow of life, rather than going against it. It involves letting go of inner resistance to the present moment, accepting reality, and then taking action to make positive changes. Surrender offers two opportunities. The first is surrendering to the reality of the present moment. The second is accepting the internal condition and facing its existence. Some people say that life is constantly about grasping, just like the character No-Face in Spirited Away. The more he gains, the more confused he becomes. Fortunately, the power of the present moment gives us a remedy to return to our true selves. However, it's important to note that this book is not meant to be merely read, but to be applied. It means we need to practice the mind cultivation methods provided in the book. Otherwise, just reading and understanding the concepts will not bring any change to our lives. Additionally, we need to remember that spiritual practice is not one thing, but everything. It means living in the present moment is not about setting aside a fixed time each day to meditate and focus on the present moment. Rather, every moment we experience should be used to cultivate our minds. Only then can we quickly experience the subtlety of the power of the present moment. Thanks for watching.